Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today we're going to make over some items and we're going to start with this little breadboard. And this is one that I found at a garage sale and it was already painted this color. So I decided that it would work well with the colors that I wanted to use in this vignette. So this is some clip art that I got off the Graphics Fairy, and the Graphics Fairy has lots of downloadable clip art that you can print off, and much of it is free. There are a lot of items obviously that you have to pay for, but there's a lot of really good clip art that you can print off free. So if you haven't checked out the Graphics Fairy online, check that out because it will save you a lot of money on your decoupage materials. Now, instead of cutting this out to go on this breadboard, obviously that's where I'm going to put it. I don't like those sharp edges from cutting, so I just took some water on a small paintbrush and just went around the image where I wanted to tear it, and then it tears right on that wet area, so it just makes tearing out a lot easier. Now I want to decoupage this on the front, but before I do that, I want to take some of the color buttercream and just paint a little oblong area, just slightly larger than this picture. And I want to do that. I don't want an exact edge even on that. I just want to kind of paint around that. I'm going to be doing some sanding later anyway. But I want some of the lighter color to kind of outline this. Now I give this 2 coats, but again, I don't care if that edge is kind of faded because I'm going to be sanding and distressing that even more. I just want that almost like a frame around the picture in this color. Now again, there's all kinds of clip art on the Graphics Fairy, and I'm going to actually show you some other images and do something with those on this video as well. But right now, I'm just measuring where I want this frame to come out. So I'm not actually laying that down. I'm just kind of holding it there to decide how far I want to go out with this buttercream. Then again, I give that 2 coats, and then once that's dry well, then I take my sander and sand around the edges of this breadboard, and also kind of fade the edges of this buttercream a little bit more. And I'm just kind of heavily sanding it. That's why I don't mind using my rotary sander, because it would take a while with to do just some little hand sanding. And then once I get this sanded the way I want it, then I just take some Mod Podge and I decoupage this right on the front. And then once I get that decoupaged on, then I'll just put a clear finish on it. Now here is the thing about printing offline when you're using your printer. If you try to brush that, brush a clear coat on that, you're going to make your colors bleed because it's just printer ink. So what I do is I take it outside and I use a spray sealer on it, but I just lightly mist it the first time, and then once that dries, then I can put a solid coat on it. But just make sure that first time you just very lightly mist it, because if it stays wet too long, it's going to cause your ink to bleed. So now I'm just taking some scraps of lace and torn fabric and making a shabby bow. And if you've not made one of these, this is very, very simple. You're just going to put some different fabrics there. And a lot of these I've ripped into strips. Obviously, the lace had to be cut. But then I just, I guess those are maybe about 6 or maybe 8 inches long. And then I just tie them together in the center, and then you just kind of fluff them up, and then that makes a shabby bow. And I'm just going to tie that shabby bow around the top. And then the hang tag that I use with this is also from the Graphics Fairy, and it's actually just a bookmark. And so I just used one of their bookmarks to use as a hang tag for the front. So again, there's just so many beautiful images on there. So now I thrifted this bottle, and I'm going to kind of do the same thing with it. I'm just going to paint a section just slightly larger than the image that I'm putting on this, and I'm going to put another Graphics Fairy image on this, and that will be just a little rose image. But I'm going to paint this, and again, it gets 2 coats just like the other one, and once that's dry well, then I'll decoupage that image on. So I printed this rose image off. I started to use this napkin, decided not to use it. I printed this rose image off from the Graphics Fairy, and obviously it's not going to fit on the front of this jar, so I'm going to tear that out. But because the paper will bleed when it gets wet, I can't really use my paintbrush and put an outline of water so that it's easier to tear, because I would be taking that water right through that green, and it would cause that green to bleed. Before, I was able to stay off the image completely, so I was able to do that, but with this one I just have to kind of tear it by hand. And then I'm just going to decoupage that right on the front. Now, I didn't mention that when I'm putting these on, with this one, I just put the glue right on the back of it. But you're not going to be able to put a coat over the front of it when you decoupage it on. You're just going to glue that on and not put a decoupage coat on the outside, because, again, you're just going to have to mist a spray sealer over it first and then seal it that way. With this one, I had to cover my jar up in order to mist that on there, because I didn't want to get any of the spray on the bottle, because it would give it more of a frosty look, which I didn't want. And I'm pressing this down here with just a little sandwich bag to get all the wrinkles out. And then I'm taking some fine grit sandpaper and kind of cleaning up around the edges some. Now, the Graphics Fairy also had a bookmark with this same rose on it. So I used that bookmark as a hang tag for this one, but instead of using the whole thing, I cut it in half. So one hang tag will have that circled top there, or that curved top, and the other one will just be square. And it just made 2 really nice hang tags. And again, it was just a bookmark that I printed off on cardstock. So now I just tied some lace and some torn fabric around the top, but I want to add a little bit to the front. So what I'm going to do is make some shabby roses and just glue those to just one side of the image. And with this one, I'm just taking a couple of different fabrics and tying them together to start my rose to give it some more texture. But I'm just going to do a few little roses there on the front. And I'm just going to make them straight onto the bottle. I'm not going to try to make the shabby roses and then glue them on. I'm just going to make them on there. Sometimes it works really well to do that. This is one of the cases where it does, but I've found many occasions when I try to make it on the item, and I probably should have just made it and put it on, but this is one that I can just kind of make on there. It's probably not the best idea, though, to do this, because if you mess up, then you're just kind of stuck. It's already on your image, where if you make the rose and then glue it on, then you have a lot more control. But it really is hard to mess up these little roses. And if you haven't seen me make them, I have several videos where I make them more in detail and closer up so that you can see better. But I'm literally just tying a knot in the end of my strip of fabric, gluing that down and then just kind of twisting and gluing it around and around until I get the size rose that I want. I hope you guys got to enjoy your Mother's Day, and I hope you got to spend a lot of time with your children and your family. I did. I had a wonderful Mother's Day, and it's funny, one of my daughters got me the same gift that I got her. We were just thinking along the same lines because when my mother passed, she had a book that she had answered questions to, and there were over 100 questions about her life that she had answered. And so then when she passed, we had all these wonderful little memories from my mother, and I can't imagine not having that. It was just such a blessing to have, and we made copies and gave them to all her children, and it was just such a good gift to get and to always have as a part of her. And so I wanted to get my daughter one because I found a book that said to my daughter, and it was for her to do for her children. And it just so happened that she got me a similar book, and it was neat. I couldn't have been happier with that gift. So I'm trying to use similar colors in these roses to the ones that are in the picture on this. And actually the shears that I'm using here and the lace as well wasn't this color, but I took some paint and actually put some paint in some water until I got the color that I wanted, and just put my fabric in and just kind of wring it out and dyed it. And it works really well. It's the first time that I had dyed fabric with paint, but it really works well. And the great thing is you can use any color that you want. You can get it any shade that you want, unlike dyes that only come in certain colors. So once I added that third rose and put some pearl beads on it, tied a hang tag on the top. That's all that I did to this one. So now the next item that I'm going to make over is this little wicker shelf that I've had in my store for display for a long time. But I decided I wanted to change it up. So I'm going to paint this in the color Tea Rose. And that's a Dixie Belle color. And I'm going to give this 2 coats of this. And then finish it off with a clear wax. And that's all that I'm going to do to this one. Now, in order to use a specific color, then I had to brush this on. I wasn't going to be able to find a spray paint to match this. It would have been much easier because this wicker is really hard to get down in. And although I gave this 2 coats, when I went to show my reveal picture, you'll see I missed a little bit down inside the wicker. So I'll have to touch that up later. I didn't notice it until I put my video together. But I'm sure you can see behind that top shelf there, I missed a couple of places. Now I want to do a book for this vignette, and I'd mentioned before that I wanted to do some of my books in the colors that I used most in the store so that I can use them in my vignettes. So I had this little vintage book, but it's just not something that I'll use in a vignette. So I'm going to kind of work with this color. I want to tone it down some, but I'm going to add some of that same clip art that I got from the Graphics Fairy to the front and back of this. So I can use the water method here to tear around the edges of this one, but I'm going to do that with both of these, and I'm just going to glue one to the front cover and one to the back cover, and that will hide all that I don't want on there. And I want the green, some of the green to show, but again, I want to tone it down some. So once I got these torn out, then I just used regular clear glue on these and glued it to the front and back. And I just kind of got that pressed down really well because, again, I'm not going to be able to put this over the top because I don't want this to bleed. So I had to use the same technique that I used on the other items by just spray misting it first and then clear coating it. But then I just took a little makeup sponge and applied some of my white wax around the edges of this. Because again, I love this green, but I wanted to tone it down. So I just rubbed some of this white wax all the way around on all the green, even on the inside where you see just that little bit of green. I toned that down also. And I'm not worried about the inside not matching because this is just going to be a book that I use in the vignette, so it's always going to be closed when I use it. So once I got this toned down with the white wax, then I just used some fabric fusion glue and glued a piece of lace just down the spine of this, and that's all that I did to this one. And then sometimes I'll use it with some cloth tied around it like I did here, some just strips of this was actually some of that sheer fabric that I dyed, or I can use it without it if I'm going to use it as a book stack or a riser. Now this idea, this is more of the clip art from the Graphics Fairy, but this idea came from my friend Jennifer Burris, and she had the greatest idea because she wanted to make some hang tags but didn't really have any use for them because she doesn't sell her items, and she decided to make some gift bags. So what she did was she made the image or printed out the image to go on the bag in the large size, and then I assume she printed out a smaller one of that same image and used it as a hang tag. It made the most beautiful bags, and now she's selling those bags and they are selling really well. So I wanted to show you guys kind of what she did. Obviously, I'm not going to have the same images she had. I'm not sure where she found hers. There were some of the neatest trucks, old trucks, and she made some for Father's Day, which is a great idea. I actually bought some from her myself, but just putting the larger image on a bag, and I think she used the brown craft bags where I'm using the white here, but it made the neatest bags. And then obviously you put some coordinating tissue inside, and then you could sell those if you have a booth. You could sell them in your booth or your store, or you could just put them back to use for gift bags yourself, or like she did, she just kind of sold them on Facebook, and they went really well. So again, I just tore these out, and I'm going to antique around the edges once that dries, and then I'm going to put some scrapbook paper in a coordinating color behind it just to kind of frame this, and I think that's what she did also. And then what I did for the hang tag was I just printed that out in a smaller version on some cardstock and antiqued around the edges of that, so that made my hang tag. But again, I owe this idea to Jennifer. I think it was a great idea, and I think she did her hang tags. I'm pretty sure that she put some scrapbook paper behind her image on her hang tags also, which was absolutely beautiful. But again, I just printed mine out on cardstock to use as my hang tag, or as the gift tag rather. And again, I'm tearing this this scrapbook paper out also because I just like that look, and then I'll antique around all of the edges to help frame that out more. Now, I used to have stenciled bags that I made and sold in the store. I just had a couple of different sizes, and they sold well, but I wasn't really good about keeping them stocked and made up. I really should, though, because people like to come in the store and get $10 and under gifts as last-minute gifts, because either they're buying for a teacher or a co-worker or a friend, and they just want to pick up something little. And they love it when when I can give them a gift bag to go with it, or they can buy a gift bag to go with it. So I'm probably going to do some more of these up and try to keep them in the store again. Now, because I'm antiquing around all the edges, I'm also going to antique around the edges of the bag. So I just go around the top and the sides and on both the front and the back because I feel like it gives it a lot better look and ties it all together. Now, just like you could take the hang tags in any direction and do any kind of hang tag you want, any style, you could do the same thing with these bags. So just any image that you like, or for any holiday, you just print a smaller one and a larger one, and it's just a simple way to make a gift bag. And thanks again, Jennifer, for that idea. I just love it, and I'm going to be using it. Now, I got these bags at Walmart, I think, and I'm thinking that there was about a dozen in a pack for $7 and something, if I'm not mistaken. You can also get these at the Dollar Tree. But, again, I just got them at Walmart. Now, I know that you can get gift bags at the Dollar Tree, and they have lots of pretty gift bags. Now, I will say that they're not the most sturdy, but they do have lots of pretty ones. This, to me, though, is just a lot more personal, and I just feel like it makes a lot better presentation to have the gift bag be handmade. And I think it would make a really special gift if you personalized a bag to go with your gift. I think that's also a very personal touch. And I know many crafters who love to craft, but they don't really know what to do with the crafts after they make them because they don't sell them and you can only display so many. But crafts like this are something that you can do that is very usable and I think very appreciated by the person who receives it. So now I just glue all this on and tie my hang tag on the top and put some coordinating tissue wrap inside, and then that's all that there is to these bags. Now I have some hang tags to show today, and I'm excited about that as usual. And both of them are from a sweet viewer, Lenova, from Vancouver, Washington. And she actually likes to sew, and she makes dolls and bears and bunnies. Oh my, she said. But these are just absolutely beautiful. That she is so talented, and I just love the shabby look of them. And I love that they're all cloth, obviously, because she sews. And the detail on these is just absolutely stunning. And this is the back of that one, down to just texture. I think the simplest thing, like the texture behind this button and these butterflies, just adds so much. Even though it's subtle, it just adds so much. And again, on this heart hang tag, it just has so much detail, and she just is so good at putting them together. And I love that she did completely different colors on the back side, but it still works so well. Thank you so much, Lenova. These are just absolutely beautiful. And Lenova also sent me some beautiful craft goodies, and I just appreciate you guys so much for that. Don't feel like you have to send anything like that. I'm happy with just your tag, but it's so sweet that so many of you are willing to share your craft supplies. Again, I know I missed some down in that wicker there, but I'll just have to touch that up later. I had already done my filming when I noticed it. So now I'm just going to play a little music while I show you through the vignette. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.